everyone, my name is Paul and I am a nerd, and you are lucky enough to be here for the Tabs 3 virtual user group meeting for June. We're a week early because of the short week next week. We decided to have it a week early, and we are just so excited to be here. Today we're talking about adding a bank account in AP and the other place. So if you're thinking what other place, this is for you. There are two places to add a bank account. Mary Jo is going to talk about where they are and how we do that. I am going to talk about why trust accounting should never be integrated with tabs except in certain ways. Of course, we all know that trust accounting needs to stay far away from our regular books. We're going to look at when it is okay and how to set it up to be okay to integrate, and why it's not okay to integrate. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to click this button and that button and show you this, which is our GoToWebinar control panel. It's where you can control your experience. Now, if you're seeing this, it's because you have not clicked this little button that looks like an arrow here pointing to the right. Once you click that button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, this will slide off of your screen, and this will be all that's left that you see, these buttons here. And this will turn into an arrow that points to the left. And the reason is because that's how you slide this back into view. Why would you want to slide that back into view? Well, of course, we all know it's because you'd want to ask a question and you're shy. If you're shy and you don't want to talk live, you can type a question here. Remember to hit send. Leanne, our guacamole and humble moderator, okay, that was a stretch. Sometimes I have a hard time finding the right adjective, will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the appropriate and opportune time, and she will ask your question on your behalf. If you have follow-up questions, or if we just plain are not headed in the right direction in answering your question, please continue to type here, continue to remember to hit send, and Leanne will continue to interrupt us with your continued questions. Now, if you are not feeling shy, you can click this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it, and that means raise your hand. And Leanne will do the same thing. She'll recognize that you have a question, but instead of reading your question, she will unmute your microphone and let you ask your own question. Again, that conversation will remain open, and that unmuting will remain active until we're done answering your question. So feel free to jump in and add to the conversation as we're answering or ask additional questions. So without any further ado, I'm going to press the magic button here. And what is the magic button? There's a magic button. That looks good. And Mary Jo, take it away. Tell us all about adding a bank account.
Sure. Okay, so sometimes we want to add a bank account. Paul said there's two places to add it. There's actually three, but we're only talking about two today. We're going to talk about adding the bank account in AP, and then also creating that account in our general ledger so that then those checks and things that we write out of AP will then post to the correct place in general ledger. You can also add bank accounts in trust, which we're not going to talk about that today either, because you might have multiple IOLTA accounts, so we may talk about that in a future seminar. But today, let's say that you have a second bank account that you want to write checks out of. This could be a payroll account. It could be, just another bank account that you need to write checks out of AP. You can actually have separate bank accounts that are created over here, but first we need to create it over in general ledger so that we can have a place to actually post and tie it to. So we're going to head over to general ledger for a moment, and I still do not have keyboard and mouse here, Paul. So I'm not going anywhere. I don't have any. I'm not moving. Sorry. There we go. Now I'm moving. Okay, so in general ledger, we first have to create the account in our chart of accounts. So over here under our chart of accounts, I'm just going to bring up what we currently have. And right now we have one operating account. We have a money market account and a payroll account. I'm just going to add another one in here, and maybe this is just a second checking. And just a little FYI in this new set of chart of accounts, if I click on the field, the account that I want to add the new one too, like this is my header account for my cash, and I hit my new button, it's going to know that the next available number in that series would be this 1100.01, which I don't want the submatter of that, but I can kind of get to exactly where I want to put that. But I'm going to do a specific number, and I'm going to say that this is 1140. And I'm going to create that, and oops, we already have an 1140, of course. Let's try an 1125. There we go. And I'm just going to have this be my new bank account. This would be whatever you want this to be named. Maybe it's at a different bank, whatever. You can choose a department if you like. This is an asset account, and I'm going to make it a detail account. You can then decide what report options, just like with any other account that you're setting up in the chart of accounts. Do you want to display it on the balance sheet? Do you want this on your summary report, and so on. So that's what we do here. That is done. I'm going to save it, and now I've got my new bank account in here. Now I can drag and drop it, and I can move it down so I can put it underneath my money market. Wherever I want to put that, it's here. So there's my bank account. Again, double-clicking on it, I'm just saying that this here is a bank account. Now, because I am going to change this for one thing, because in the old version, before version 17, we would have made this an asset account, and we would have checked a box that said that it was a bank account. And in 17, they changed that, where we can now just tell it that it is a bank account type of bank account, or account type of bank account. So now I'm going to change that to make sure that it is a bank account. Otherwise, it would show up over here, but if I wanted to get bank balances or I wanted to add it for anything else as a bank account, I wouldn't be able to see it. And once I choose that, then I can click on Bank Info and put in my bank information if I choose to. So I've created my account over here in GL, and so now I want to go tie that for AP. So when I write my checks, things are going to post to that actual account. So when I go back into Accounts Payable, under Setup, I'm going to go to the Bank Account section. And right now, if I do my drop-down, I have one bank account in here for First Bank. If I choose that one, or I choose number 2, because I want to create a new one, I'm going to make this my new bank account. And this could be whatever name you want to give it. I could put in the last check number if I have it. And here is where I'm going to tell it how I'm going to tie it into General Ledger. So at this point, I can do my drop down, and I can choose that new bank account that I created. This is bringing up my chart of accounts, and I can put that in here for my where I'm going to post to. I can choose my check type, and then I can save it, and now that bank account will be ready for me to use. So if I go in to do an invoice, and I'm just going to pick somebody here, it doesn't matter. Down here is where I can choose which bank account I'm actually writing this check to. So I have now my new bank account. I can switch it, and I can come in and write my check out for whatever I want. And I would have that, obviously filled in on the first page and be carrying it over so that I could do it. You can default which one you want. So let's say that you had your First Bank account, and then you were opening a brand new account. Maybe you moved banks or something as simple as that. You might not have a separate account you're writing checks out of for payroll or something like that. You just moved banks, and you have a new one, but you still have the old one. So you have checks that you need to clear, but you still want to open that new account. You can actually default your bank account to be bank account number 2, which is your new bank. And again, you can do that on the bank account setup. You can tell it whether or not that is your default bank. So back on my bank account 2, I can use this as, oh, it's not on that one. Where is that at? You can say whether or not it's the default. I'm trying to think of where that went to. Of course, it's going to be on my customization, which we're in. So let me get out of my chart. But you can actually say that bank account number 2 now will be my default bank account. So right here on my customization, under my main, I can choose number 2 as my main, my default. And that way you don't have somebody accidentally posting and still writing checks out of number 1. Even though they're writing the check out of number 2, they might still post it wrong in AP. You can default it. So any questions?
No questions, Mary Jo.
Okay, Paul, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, let's see. I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to talk about trust. Now, one of the #1 reasons that lawyers get into trouble is for not properly handling their trust accounts or the money that's in them. Now, it's not always a matter of misappropriating funds or borrowing client trust funds. Sometimes it's just doing the accounting wrong. So one of the things that it's very important that we do is keep our trust and our regular operating accounts totally separate. The books should never meet until a certain thing happens, until the firm gets paid through the trust account. Now, that's not entirely true because clients will want to see their trust activity on their bill. So it's perfectly all right to print a bill that at the bottom says, here's what we've done with your trust money this month. But other than that, the trust money should be totally separate. Of course, it's in a totally separate bank account. It does not show up in your chart. It does not show up in your general ledger. It doesn't show up anywhere that has anything to do with your general accounts. So let's first take a look at how it can work in an integrated way before that money hits your actual account. And we'll pull up Mr. Wilson or Williams, and we will print a draft statement for him. Now, he has, I believe, a trust balance. So when we display this, at the bottom of one of his statements, we're going to see his retainer balance. Here, we've changed the language in this demo system to say your retainer balance. Some firms say trust balance, some firms say retainer balance. And here it's just showing the opening and closing balances. Now, when it is set a slightly different way, we'll go in here and statement options. We have the ability on a matter-by-matter basis. We're currently looking at matter 00 for client 101, which is John Williams. Let's change it to summary. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to get out of here and print another draft bill. And now, rather than showing the opening balance, any transactions, there weren't any. We'll show this one. We actually have one in there too. And then the closing balance, at this point, now all we're going to show is a simple summary that says your retainer balance is so much. And the other option, as you may have noticed when we were in there, is to simply say that we don't want any integration. So if we turn it off, we're not going to get anything on the bill at all. That's the only way that your trust and regular accounts should commingle at all until you get paid out of trust. Until you get money as a firm paid out of the trust account to you, the firm, that's the only level of integration that you are allowed to have. So let's go into the trust account system. And let's, I know which button to press really. And let's add a trust transaction to pay the firm for Mr. Williams. And I'm going to say that it is a check. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a check number. Normally you wouldn't, and you'd have the system print the check. But I don't want to have to go through and print the check just to show you how this works. So we're going to pretend like it's a manual check. And it tells me that's not a number that's in sequence, but I don't care. Keep in mind, it's putting in today's date, but it thinks my date is 11/17/14. That's just how our demo system works. The amount of the check, let's say $300. You can say it's for attorney fees. You can give it whatever description you want. There's a memo line for the check as well. And now, if we have set up a special payee called firm, then it A, knows who that is, and B, knows that when we enter this transaction to write a check out of trust to the firm, that it should automatically create a payment in the billing system, and that should pass through, if you're using our integrated accounting, to your books, to your regular books, to show up as income and to show up as a deposit now that's going into the regular operating account. That is the first time that any money from trust should hit your regular operating accounts. And when you do it right, when you set up the firm payee, it knows to automatically create the corresponding payment in tabs to reduce the client's amount due, and automatically, if tabs then knows to create the corresponding entries to show that as income in your books. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and then I'm going to pretend like I meant to do that because I want to show you this. You must review the tabs information before saving the record. What that means is it wants you to review this tab, if you will, that talks about how this money is going to be dispersed. Now, we in our demo system use a regular payment, so it's all going in as a regular payment. But if you were using one that allowed you to break it down by fees, expenses, and advances, it would tell you how it wanted to disperse that, but it would let you override it. That's what that message meant. It means it simply wants you to review this. So usually what you do is you put in the amount, you put in firm, and then you click here, and then you click Save. And when we do that, if we now go back over here to the Client Manager and print a, well, for one thing, we've got this payment in here. And we also have another payment that was already in there, but there's that $100 payment. 300 was the one I entered, Mary Jo. There we go. And now if we preview the bill, we're going to see a couple things. We're going to see this payment that was automatically created as a result of our having written that check for $100 or $300, whichever one it was. We'll find out. And you're going to see, if you have it set to show the activity, you're going to see it down here. Now, we don't. Remember, we changed that to summary, so we're going to jump back over here. We're going to jump back into the statement options, and we're going to change it to be detail integration. And once we do that and hit the Save button, we can then go back in and preview another bill, the same bill, just in a different conglomeration, if you will. And now when we go down here, it's going to show us the opening balance and the closing balance. It should show us a transaction. I'm not quite sure why it isn't. That's the one thing we didn't test before we did this. Because what? Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you, Mary Jo. Mary Jo to the rescue. I'm going to actually do a statement a different way, and I'm going to go in and say my statement date is now it's today's date. And I'm going to put in my client number here, and I'm going to cross my fingers. Mary Jo, you cross your fingers too. Oh, she's crossing both sets. While we're waiting, I'll give you my tip of the day. Never cross both sets of fingers. Only cross one set, and see Mary Jo cross two sets. And I'm not quite sure why that's not showing. It should be. That's a little odd. Okay. That could be something with the demo data. It should be showing the opening retainer balance, the payment to the firm has a transaction, and then a closing retainer balance of $26.04. So we're going to pretend that it is, and we're going to figure out why later. But that is how the trust integration works. The payment shows up automatically. If we go into GL, we'll actually see this journal entry that indicates that this payment was made. You know, Mary Jo, I'm not seeing that either. That's from this morning. Okay. There we go. Gotcha. Okay, so $300, and there's the payment. And if we go, of course, into our chart of accounts, or should I say into our income statement, that $300 payment is now going to show in here. So the point is, when the payment's made in trust to the firm, that money comes in to the billing system immediately. It creates a payment entry that reduces the balance. We saw that. It should create a trust transaction that's set to print on the statement. We'll find out why that didn't happen. It's under the trust section. And it carries through to the general ledger system so that it shows as income. That's when trust accounting should meet regular accounting, never before, except in that informational way of being able to show the client what their trust transactions were. If you write another check for pay an expert witness, to pay a filing fee, to pay whatever fees, that's the only other time it should before then. Questions, Leanne?
There are no questions, Paul.
Okay.
Paul, I'm just going to add a couple of things for you here. In trust, a couple of things to watch out for. The date of the check is huge. A lot of times you're running statements like maybe that second week of the next month, and you're cutting off your statement date as of, you know, May 31st, but you're writing the trust check to move it like June 10th. that wouldn't show down at the bottom in the trust activity because your statement date is before when you wrote the check. And that's probably part of what our issue is with the sample data. It's trying to put in a different date, and it's very specific there. So if you want that activity to show down in that trust activity, those dates of the check have to be within your statement date range. It will still show the payment and apply it up on your bill, but it won't be in the activity until the following month. Something else was the other thing I was thinking of over there with that.
Multiple payments.
Well, multiple payments too, but with the statement date, I thought there. Oh, if you don't print your check, let's say that you put it in and it's still unpaid down here, that won't show up over there until you actually print the check, or if you do an EFT or something, that would show immediately. And you saw Paul put in a manual check just so that we could get it to go over, but you actually have to print the check first. And then the last thing that, if you write that payee to the firm, that's coming in and making a payment on whatever matter it is that you're writing it on. So if you dump all of your trust money for all of your matters under the 00 matter, but you want to apply a payment over the multiple matters to cover like the 10 that you have out there, you need to actually just write this to your firm name. And in our case, I think it's Jensen Martin and something. So instead of writing firm here, I would just type my check out to Jensen Martin and whatever and write it out. And then I would just deposit it and manually enter my payments in tabs like I normally would, so I could split it across multiple matters. And you can use that, apply payments to multiple matters if you want to, or just physically put it under each matter and distribute it how you want. So you can still write a check to yourself and split it over multiple matters, or just write it to firm and let it apply directly to whatever matter you're writing. I think that was all of them that I remembered.
Right.
Is there any others that you can think?
Nope, I think that's it. Okay, and no further questions? I feel like a lawyer.
No, there are no further questions.
Okay. Thank you, Leanne.
You're
well,
welcome.
With that, we will be done for today. Next month, we are going to talk about flat fee billing. Mary Jo will talk about that. It's been really improved in version 17. So we'll cover not only the changes, but the general concept. And I'm going to talk about how to add a new trust bank account. Mary Jo touched on how to add a regular operating account. I'm going to talk about how to add a new trust bank account. If you're interested, the Practice Master Virtual User Group meeting that's coming up in about 34 minutes, that's going to be about column layouts and find and replace in Practice Master. And next month in Practice Master, we're talking about eNote and eNotify and workflows. So, by the way, if you ever miss one or you want to go back and review, if you go to our website, which is www.attorneycomputersystems.com. We're working on making that longer, but for now, that's as long as it is. attorneycomputersystems.com. You can always find information about the upcoming VUGs, Virtual User Group Meetings. For instance, if we click on Tab, it'll tell about the one that you're listening to right now, and give you information on how to register. And if you scroll down, we've always got the recorded versions of all the prior virtual user group meetings since we started recording long time ago. So there's a lot of valuable information in here, and you will find that for the tabs, Practice Master and World Docs virtual user group meetings, along with our monthly webinar series, our Coffee Pot webinars, Mary Jo's exciting e-bite video series, which is short snippets, 3 or 4 minute videos on very specific things, and our TV show format, Paul and Mary Jo Show, where we take the same sorts of bits of learning, but we expand upon them and cover them in great detail. So that's it. Everybody have a good rest of the afternoon, a good rest of the month, and we will see you next month. Happy 4th of July. Bye-bye.